Hey everyone, welcome to Moving Matt. We do all things cameras with a dash of vlogs and a little bit of travel. And today I want to be going over the 5 most anticipated cameras yet to come out in 2021. Now, I made a video about this back in December of 2020, but now we are at the halfway point of this year and we have more information, so I wanted to update it. Now, some of these cameras are confirmed to be coming and others are just highly speculated. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's get into it. My number 5 pick is the Panasonic GH6. Now the GH6 is the long-awaited follow-up to the GH5. A lot of people thought at first when they announced the GH5 Mark II that the GH6 was not coming, but now Panasonic has done a development announcement letting us know that this camera should be coming out in September. Now I won't go through an exhaustive list of the specs, but some of the highlights are it's going to have 5.7K at 60 frames per second 10-bit, and it's going to have 4K 60 10-bit 422, and it's also going to have 4K 120 10-bit, but I'm guessing that's 420. Now we'll also have a new sensor. Most people are predicting that it's going to be 24 megapixels and will come in around $2,500. Now a big unknown for the camera is still going to be if they're going to go with that old contrast-based autofocus or if they're going to switch to something like face detect autofocus. Everyone's hoping that they will, but nothing has been confirmed just yet. But moving on to my number 4 pick, and that is the Nikon Z9. So the Nikon Z9 also did a development announcement. It's not exactly sure if it's going to be coming this year, but it's very likely that it will be coming before the Tokyo Olympics in Japan, at least in a prototype type way for the professionals there. So I'm guessing it will be coming just a few months later to the general public. I'm guessing sometime in fall or maybe early winter. Now we know that this will have around a 50 megapixel sensor. It will also shoot 8K, and we're not exactly sure of all the photo specs just yet. Now it seems like this will have the same sensor as the Sony A1, which is kind of breaking from tradition. Sony usually does not allow their top of the line sensors to go out to Nikon so soon, but it looks like that is going to be the case if they're going to have an 8K camera with the 50 megapixel sensor. Now we know Nikon will put some of its signature specs into the camera, but it will be interesting to see if they're able to change any of the hard specs coming out of that sensor, and if with the bigger body and with whatever their processor is, if they're able to get more out of that sensor. I think it will be interesting to see how their 8K performance works, considering they are going to have that larger body. One of the big question marks behind the Nikon Z9 is if they're finally going to be able to catch up to Canon and Sony's autofocusing system. I'm hoping that they will be able to, considering this is their flagship camera. But moving on, we have my number 3 pick, which is the Canon R7. Now the Canon EOS R7 will be Canon's flagship APS-C camera. Now not much is known about this camera. A lot of rumors were coming out towards the beginning of the year and early last year, but a lot of those rumors have seemed to die down. Now the previous rumored specs had it somewhere around an R6 performance, and I think that will be interesting, especially with that cropped sensor, because the R6 is a very fast camera. I also wonder with the R3 having a stacked sensor, if they will be able to put a stacked sensor into this R7 and be able to give it better dynamic range and low light for that smaller APS-C sensor size. Now it's no secret that pretty much every technology company has been hit pretty hard from the semiconductor shortages and the manufacturing issues of this year, or actually the last year and a half now. That's sad to say. So there is a possibility that this camera will be pushed sometime to next year, but I am still hopeful, especially considering that Canon News has uncovered some patents for some APS-C style lenses. That makes me think that this camera may be gearing up and getting ready to come. But my number 2 spot for most anticipated cameras, also coming from Canon, is the Canon EOS R3. Now Canon has kind of been teasing us with this camera, and they've actually had 2 development announcements, and they're still not giving us all the specs that we want to know. They have said that it will be shooting 4K oversampled from something, but we do not know what that is going to be. We also know that it will shoot 30 frames per second electronic and probably have a very fast readout speed, especially considering that you're able to use a speed light with it, kind of like you can in the Sony A1. So I'm guessing it will have very minimal rolling shutter. Now they're saying this isn't quite their flagship camera and the R1 will be coming sometime in the future. I do not think it's going to be in 2021 for the R1 at this point, so that's why it is not making this list. Now, why am I setting this camera above the Nikon Z9, which is the flagship camera from Nikon? Well, I think it's kind of because a lot of the mystery that still surrounds this camera and some of the innovating specs that I'm excited to see more about, like the eye tracking autofocus. It'll be interesting to see if it works as advertised, and if it does, I think it will be a game changer. Another reason it falls so high on this list is Canon has proven themselves in the mirrorless market with the R5, and it will be interesting to see what their step above camera will actually be capable of. But moving on to my final most anticipated camera, a camera that absolutely should be coming, cross our fingers, in 2021, and that is the Sony A7 IV. Now, very little is known about the Sony A7 IV, except it is the follow-up to the Sony A7 III, which blew everyone's expectations away back when it came out. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's been the most popular mirrorless full frame that's ever came out. Now, a lot of people are anticipating that this will be a mini version of the A7 III, which in some ways it may be. People are thinking that it will just have 4K 60, but if I had to guess, they are going to bring in something a little bit more sexy than just 4K 60. I would not be surprised to see 6K in this camera, or maybe even 8K. I know that sounds a little ridiculous, but I think the further out we wait to see this camera, the more likely the specs will blow us away. Also, if we follow the trend, the A7 III came out and in a lot of ways surpassed the specs of even the Sony A7S II. So while I do think the Sony A7S III will hold some advantages, especially in dynamic range and low light, I also believe that the Sony A7 IV will have some advantages as well. And also, it's definitely going to be more of a hybrid camera, having a higher megapixel sensor. But those are just my picks for the most anticipated cameras. Drop in the comment section below and give me your list. And if you've liked this video, be sure to give it a like and consider subscribing. And until next time, peace.